It's time, Cougar Nation. Cougar Tracks. The best season analysis with BYU insider Mitch Harper on KSL NewsRadio and on video every day on the YouTube page for KSL Sports.
Welcome into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube and KSL NewsRadio, your legacy home of the Cougars. It's December 10th here on Cougar Tracks, and I'm your BYU insider, Mitch Harper, and we're diving into BYU basketball's big win at the Mecca.
The top story of the day. The biggest story in the world of BYU sports right here on Cougar Tracks.
How about that? BYU basketball storms back from a 22-point deficit to take down the Clemson Tigers 67-64, courtesy of a buzzer beater from Rob Wright. Choose the right. The Cougs get it done at MSG. An amazing win for BYU basketball for so many different reasons. One, it's a buzzer beater. That's awesome. Rob Wright hits a big three. Cougs had 1.3 seconds remaining on the clock. Mihailo Boskovic inbounds the pass to Rob Wright. He fades to his right and knocks down the three, and it was a smooth shot, man. It looked good the moment it left his hand, and the Cougs get the win. They were down 22 in the second half, and A.J. Dybantsa put this BYU team on his back and looked every bit the part of a number one overall NBA draft pick and every bit the part of the superstar signee that he was signed to be at BYU. I talked about it yesterday on the show. I wanted to see A.J. have a superstar performance at Madison Square Garden. That arena does things to people's stardom. And you saw it in the college basketball media cycle. That performance by AJ, 28 points, 22 points in the second half. He outscored Clemson 22-21. AJ goes for 28, 9 of 17 from the field. He was 9 of 10 from the free throw line, which has been a point of focus for him to get better there. 9 rebounds, 6 assists. All career highs for him in his young BYU basketball career. Obviously expected to be the number one pick potentially in the NBA draft next June, maybe number 2, maybe number 3. But I think he made it clear he should be number 1. His versatility, his mid-range game, his shot-making ability, outstanding. And Rob Wright was brilliant too. He finished with 17 points and hit that game winner to give the Cougs the big win.
Not a three. I never had a buzzer beater three, so that was the first one. But, the play, AJ wasn't open. He was getting double teamed, so I told me I'll be coming back to the ball. And he just trusted in me and passed it to me, and then the shot went in. So, it's a real feeling.
Got to go back to his freshman year of high school, the last time Rob Wright hit a game winner. So anytime you can get a game winner, that's a big deal. And then to do it at Madison Square Garden and to cap off a comeback, that's impressive stuff. Largest second-half comeback in BYU basketball history. The Cougars were down by 22 points. It passes the 21-point comeback against Utah in 2002. I remember that one vividly. Matt Montague, Eric Nilsson, the athletic, high-flying Eric Nilsson. That was an amazing comeback. I think Greg Wrubell had a call that said, "This shall be known as the comeback." Cougs got it done 63-61 in 2002 over the rival Utes. That was the season in 2002 where BYU was an absolute juggernaut at the Marriott Center, and they could never win a game on the road. They were 7 up at home, 7 down on the road, 7-7 in Mountain West play. They just could not win away from the Marriott Center. They couldn't. I remember that NIT they played DeJuan Wagner in Memphis. Gosh, that was good stuff. Great comeback performance. And I love, too, BYU's defense. We know BYU's offense could put it on teams in bunches. We saw it against Wisconsin. Heck, we saw it in the second half against Clemson. 45 points against a very physical, big Clemson team I thought was really impressive. But defensively, that's the area where BYU has to be elite if they want to go cut down the nets and win the title. And not have a Werner ladder come out for a Keba Keita fixed hoop situation. No, climb the Werner ladder to go to Indianapolis and cut down the nets in April. You've got to be elite defensively. And BYU, with guys like Bachmeier on the back end of the defense, even to a lesser extent, Hadim Boop, who I thought gave some valuable minutes defensively for BYU off the bench. This BYU team, it shows you how good they can be defensively. They shut down Clemson. BYU in the second half had runs of, it was 20-3 run, 20-3 run, and then a 13-2 run. Just suffocating defense on Clemson. Now, Clemson turned it up late. Credit to them for making shots in this game late to put BYU in a situation where they have to get a game winner from Rob Wright. Remember, Kennard Moo Davis, he hits a big three, puts BYU up by 6, and I'm thinking game over. And then AJ has his highlight reel dunk that's going to be probably a Nike billboard eventually. BYU was up 6 and it looked like it was over. Clemson then turned it up and hit some big shots. Rob Wright, until the buzzer beater, he could have been a little bit of the GOAT because he missed the front end that gave an opportunity to Clemson to go tie it up at 64, but then everything worked out and Rob Wright stepped up and was every bit the clutch playmaker that he was expected to be when he signed with BYU out of the transfer portal, and the same goes for AJ Dybantsa. Those two players combined for 45 points. I thought Bachmeier, minus the headband Bachmeier, was outstanding too. 10 points, 7 rebounds for Bachmeier. Bachmeier, to me too, what's amazing about him, he had 3 block shots, 2 steals. He had a steal that goes coast to coast, leads a dunk. Thing about him, he always blows me away by his shot blocking ability, some of his rebounds. I can't ever get not impressed with Bachmeier, what he's able to do on the defensive end. He is so explosive and athletic. And the thing I love about Bachmeier too, he brings a bit of a nastiness, man. He doesn't care about your feelings. He's going out there to win the game at all costs for his team. And he'll be a little chippy. He's got an edge to him. I love that about Bachmeier. I think he is an absolute baller. And the sheer violence behind his dunks. The man caused a delay at the 11-minute mark in the second half that was long enough to bring out the teams for a 3-minute shoot-around to get warmed up again. They brought out a level, the MSG workers, to see if the hoop was level or not. The man plays with sheer violence. I love it. And keep in mind, too, BYU gets this win on a night where Richie Saunders was completely off offensively. Only 5 points for Richie. 0 of 7 from 3. Second time this season that's happened. The other time also happened in a Garden at the Boston Garden against UConn. So hopefully Richie can, get a little more consistent with that 3-point shot, but it's nice that BYU has the firepower to still get a victory where Richie's off. But one thing we do learn, though, about this BYU team, these slow starts are going to bite them eventually. Man, they are an incredible second-half team. But you cannot get into these holes every single time. Maybe it's just simply traveling to the East Coast. UConn game, Miami, Dayton, Clemson, all first-half deficits. You can include Delaware for the home game back on November 11th, too, but that's got to end. It's going to bite them eventually. It did at UConn in Boston. It was too big of a hole, and that was only 11 points, but UConn just kept answering, and BYU, to their credit, stormed back and made it a game, but you've got to start off strong going forward. And Kevin Young talked about AJ Dybantsa and how he's performed in the second half and really started to pick his spots, and this was AJ as well, along with KY, on picking those spots.
It's just being patient. Don't get too down on yourself if you're missing shots in the first half. Like, you got another 20 minutes to go, and I'm super confident in my ability, and I trust all my work that I put in, so it's eventually going to fall.
And if I could chime in on there, I think in the first half he was doing a lot of stuff towards the baseline. He's falling away. I think he mentioned that, but he does a great job when he gets middle, and just we have a little saying, him and I just pick a spot. That was something I learned in the NBA with coaching really good players. Just pick a spot. you're either going to make it or miss it. And he was able to get to his spots tonight and made them pay.
The power of KY, so simple, yet so detailed in his response. And this was KY on the game winner from Rob Wright.
The initial full court play we had drawn up, they defended it well. And then at the last minute, I was kind of like, hey, Rob, if you get it across half court, call a timeout. And then, that play that we just ran at the end there is one that, we worked on in practice several times. And, Rob made a big-time play. Mihailo he didn't play in the second half. He comes in, and I trust him as a passer. He made a great pass. And then Rob made it happen.
Big win for the Cougs to improve to 8-1 on the season. They're now number 10 in the Ken Pom ratings. They dropped one spot after that performance because BYU was a favorite. We should keep that in mind. But Clemson, a top 25 team in the ratings, that's a quality win. Just find a way to get it done and learn those valuable lessons moving forward. I think there was something to build off of this for BYU. I thought offensively they looked really good in the second half. Some of those step-up screens, as KY noted in his post-game press conference, where with Kata's back to the basket, those rolls. I mean, BYU, they do things so simple, but with the playmakers that they have now, they can just level it up and just hammer teams away with their athleticism and playmaking ability with the top end of this roster. Questions about the depth with the absence of Dawson Baker. You just don't have much firepower on that second unit yet. I like that they gave some early minutes to Alexei Kostic. He hasn't capitalized yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if eventually it starts to click for Kostic. And, we'll see more eventually from Tyler Morris. I would like to think once he starts to find his shot, he's only firing up threes. Hopefully those can start falling for him as well. But Cougs get it done. 67-64 over Clemson. Next up for BYU, a return to the Marriott Center. It's been a long time, 32 days for the Cougars. They'll be back in action at the MC Saturday, December 13th against UC Riverside. Tip-off at 7, pregame at 6 on KSL News Radio. Long gap, more than a month away from the Marriott Center. You go look at the top 10 teams in Ken Pom. No one had longer than about 17 days between home games. BYU had a very long extended period, and to still be 8-1 against one of the toughest schedules in college basketball, great start for Kevin Young's squad. We'll take a break. We'll get to more BYU basketball, the best buzzer beaters in program history, here on Cougar Tracks, and it's powered by KSL Sports. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on the KSL Sports YouTube page every single day, coming to you here on Cougar Tracks. We've had some issues with the X feed and live streams, some of the technical issues, but that's now all cleared up. We're back live on the streams, all fixed, all dialed up. So appreciate all your patience. Some of you have been asking, hey, why aren't you streaming on X still? It was a little bit of a technical issue. Had to do some contacts, some road support. We're back in action. We're live. We're rolling again. So appreciate your patience there. But Cougar Tracks going strong, even with football kind of in the rearview mirror, basketball heating up, and we're going to keep doing this thing every single day, giving you the latest in BYU sports. So I'd appreciate if you subscribe to the show, gave a thumbs up to this video, subscribed on the audio feeds, give a 5-star rating and a review. It'd help out the show a ton. So BYU football talk. Cougs, of course, are preparing to get ready for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets on Saturday, December 27th in Orlando at the Pop-Tarts Bowl. We'll have extended pregame for you on that day, 10 a.m., to get you ready for BYU and Georgia Tech 2 days after Christmas. And in the lead up to bowl games, I think one of the valuable things with bowls, which is always interesting, is the opportunity to almost treat it like another spring practice where you're giving opportunities to young guys to develop. But at the same time, you want to give the seniors a proper send-off. It's a tricky balance a little bit. It's kind of the bridge to next season and honoring this current team for 2025. I asked Kalani Sitake about that juggling act, and this was Kalani this week.
Follow the momentum that you have from the season, and then you have to develop the young guys. So in a lot of ways, it might be different types of practices we're trying to get, and the thing is, we can use all our red shirts just like we did in the championship game, and so it makes things a little bit different, but it makes it even more fun. Everybody has an opportunity to participate, and we got to get back to practicing though. I mean, I know we'll have a couple days off to get the guys over the season to heal quickly, but then we got to get back to work.
And getting back to work will include giving some valuable opportunities to the freshman class. And I wanted to look and size up the freshman inventory here on the podcast on the offensive side. And it basically starts and ends with quarterback Bear Bachmeier. Bear Bachmeier, how on earth did On3 not give Bear the first team true freshman All-American team nod at quarterback? Now, Cal QB Jaren Kiave Sangu Polotele, he's excellent. He's a fantastic player. But Bear Bachmeier led BYU as a true freshman to a Big 12 championship game, had BYU in the playoff race. And then you look at the stats for Bear Bachmeier, 2,708 passing yards, 14 passing TDs, 6 picks, but 2 of which were in the Big 12 championship game, so 4 in the regular season. Rushing yards, 527 yards, 11 touchdown runs. Bear Bachmeier accounted for 25 TDs this season. I don't know how you don't pick Bear Bachmeier as the true freshman All-American QB if you're on 3. Look, Jaren Kiave Sangu Polotele is really good, but Bear Bachmeier was better this year. Now, the ceilings, maybe Jaren is higher, but I still think Bear has got a ceiling or two to grow in his development, and I think that's going to be one of the fascinating things to see with Bear Bachmeier. There's been an image floating around on Facebook of him in a boot. I haven't verified that myself, but clearly Bear was banged up. Safe to say, anyone watching that game saw Bear was clearly banged up in that game. And Kalani said on Sunday that Bear will be fine for the bowl. He'll heal quickly. And I won't doubt Kalani. I mean, he's usually pretty transparent on this. I know Kalani gets some grief and people say, oh, he learned from Whittingham when it came to injuries. Look, I've been following it as close as anyone when it comes to injuries. He's pretty transparent when it comes to this stuff, so I'll take him at his word. But when you look at this freshman class, I thought Bear this year was excellent. Maybe it's because, too, there was low expectations, I think, even though he was a 4-star recruit. You just still think as a true freshman, there's going to be games where it just doesn't go well. That wasn't the case for Bear outside of games against the number 4 team in the country, Texas Tech. Outside of that, I thought Bear was excellent throughout this entire season, and he got better over the course of the season as a passer too. Now, I still think that's an area where he needs to continue to evolve, and he was hobbled against Texas Tech in that Big 12 championship. So it's kind of an incomplete to really critique him in passing the football in that spot, but the coaches kept him in. And if that's the case, and they're going to keep him in and say he's the best guy, you got to be able to sling the rock. And that was non-existent against Texas Tech. So that's still an area where he can continue to level up and get better. But that UCF game, the accuracy, 84% completion rate, you love that. That's great signs of a guy that's from game 1 to game 12 got significantly better. And credit to Aaron Roderick and the growth and kind of the strategic plan. I go back to fall camp when I asked A-Rod about the quarterback battle. It was still before they announced Bear as the starter. And he'd said, I asked him in general, what would be the message to fans about this race? And he's like, hey, we got this. We know what we're doing. And you thought, do you know how to handle a true freshman through a Power 4 schedule? That's tricky. He sure did. BYU did an excellent job with Bear Bachmeier. And Bear is so mature, so poised, and just a down-to-earth guy that he doesn't get rattled by much. And I think that's something that's a special trait because the emotions, the mentals, that can really sink quarterbacks when mentally it goes south. It's happened before. We've seen heralded quarterbacks suffer some big losses, and then mentally they never recover. And Bear Bachmeier bounced back. And I thought after that Texas Tech loss in the regular season, he got better. The TCU game, Cincinnati game, effective offensive performances by BYU. You know, I'd like to see BYU's offense have more firepower through the air next season and the years to come with Bear Bachmeier. But ultimately, he did what he was asked to do, and now he's going to have more autonomy of this playbook. He's going to master it even more. I'm excited about the potential of Bear Bachmeier. I think all of Cougar Nation really should be. Is there a ceiling to him? Is this the best that he can be? I think there's another gear to him, and I think that's reason for excitement going forward in his BYU career. But a resounding success for Bear Bachmeier in his true freshman campaign with the Cougars. Looking at the other freshmen outside of Bear on the offensive side, there wasn't anyone that really made a dent in the program this year. And that's a good thing because that means the upperclassmen are panning out. The guys that are the veterans are the ones that you're leaning on, and they're staying healthy for the most part. So you didn't have to turn to many freshmen. But you look at some of the names on the freshman class this season. Logan Payne, he's a running back that I've talked about in the past. I think he could be someone that's solid for BYU, could be an option down the road. Emerson Geilman, another quarterback, he's going to be going on a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'll tell you what, in fall camp, Emerson was slinging that pill, man. He throws a beautiful ball, Emerson Geilman. Unknown recruit, not even rated by the recruiting services, was a baller at Bountiful High School. I don't know how he wasn't rated. He was really good. You wonder, too, if he was boxed in by the fact that, oh, he's a Utah kid. This doesn't get the spotlight, because I still think this state doesn't get the credit it deserves with its quarterbacks outside of Corner Canyon quarterbacks. I think the state of Utah QBs tend to get overlooked. Look at Trayden Bessinger, who committed to Iowa. I think he's really good. His recruitment didn't pick up until, Boise started getting in the mix. BYU was kind of flirting for a while, but never really pulled the trigger because, well, they were pursuing Ryder, and it makes all the sense in the world. You're going to lean into Ryder Lions. But the recruits in this state quarterback-wise seem to always get overlooked. And Geilman, look, I'll tell you, I think that when he comes back from a mission, and I said this back at fall camp, in my fall camp breakdowns, he is someone that you create a spot for and give an opportunity to compete and play potentially at BYU. I think Geilman really impressed to the point where, okay, you save a roster spot for Emerson Geilman because you always need arm talent. And a guy that wanted to be at BYU, he's a great guy off the field, member of the church, all you want in a BYU athlete. And he throws a great ball, too. I think that guy has a lot of potential. It would not shock me if Emerson Geilman one day started a game at BYU. It wouldn't shock me because I just think he's got a skill set and size and intangibles that are really exciting. I thought he looked really good in fall camp. Some guys that redshirted this year that I think have big futures, and I've talked about them a handful of times here on the podcast. Ethan Thomason, Andrew Williams, they redshirted. Those guys are going to be big-time offensive tackles for BYU. I think Andrew Williams is the next Blake Freeland. He's an excellent athlete, and I think Ethan Thomason, who was dealing with a bit of an ankle in fall camp that kind of put him behind the eight ball, it was best that they just redshirted him, get him ready for winter conditioning and spring ball. This will be a great opportunity for Thomason to really step in and compete right away. But keep in mind, too, he was coming back from a mission. And for him to, even have some opportunities in camp with the second unit, fresh off a mission as an offensive lineman, speaks to his talent. Now, Andrew Williams, straight out of high school, I thought he was a little bit further ahead than Thomason during fall camp, but Williams will be an excellent player along with Thomason. They could be your tackles of the future for BYU. You got some tight ends, Jacob Nye, Tucker Kelleher. Nye was dealing with some injuries in fall camp. Kelleher, more of a blocker Jacob Knight could be more of a receiving threat for BYU in the receiving game. So he's one to maybe watch potentially. Another offensive lineman that I was really intrigued by could be a guy that plays a lot of different spots on the offensive line. Sio Siaua Latu Finau. I like him. I like his size, a little bit more developmental, but prominent P4 prospect. Had interest from the Bay Area schools, picks BYU. I like his upside to potentially be a key piece. And then you've got some, kind of deep cut true freshmen, Brigham Alexander, offensive lineman, Jeff Lewis, Chad Lewis's son. He was dealing with an injury. Saw him scooting around practices during the fall. A wide receiver, Keila Keone, good body type, maybe could be something potentially. We'll see. It's a numbers crunch in future years. Eventually, it's going to be a hard 105 where it's capped at that number, and that's that. So there's going to be still some moments where love to have you, but, maybe there's a situation where you get recruited over potentially if you can level up the position. It's a bit of a numbers game sometimes, but I thought he showed kind of well in fall camp. I thought he'd made some nice plays with those third and fourth team units in stretches during fall camp. Redshirt freshman for BYU offensively, here's the names: Joe Brown, Jovesa Damuni, Sione Hingano, Dom McKenzie, Will Zundel, Noah Moiaki, Tay Nakua, Iki Tupo, Trevor Pay, Charlie Miska, Strance Mangisi. Joe Brown, haven't seen him really take off yet, but understand the offensive line veteran group the past 2 years. And Joe Brown suffered an injury last year, and it's been a process. But I think next year's the year where you start to see the rewards of Joe Brown being at the Gold's Gym Mission, being a guy that just physically looked ready to play coming off the mission. Next year will be that year, I think, for Joe Brown, potentially along that offensive line for BYU, maybe a guard spot for the Cougars. Dom McKenzie, I thought, had some moments, during spring and fall camp this past year, but it's kind of hard to forecast where he sits on the pecking order at wide receiver. Haven't seen enough yet to say he's going to be in that top 5, top 4 of the receiver unit yet, but the speed is there. You saw some deep shots in fall camp. I remember there was one from Trayson Bourget who had a deep ball to Dom McKenzie intended for him, and just the route running ability of Dom McKenzie, his speed, it's effortless, and that's exciting. But at the same time, could he be a key every down factor at wide receiver? We'll see still. Same with Tay Nakua. Tay Nakua has been in that top 6. We've heard his name for a long time. We saw him a little bit against UCF, but and I know it's a big name. The Nakua name is huge, and he had an excellent spring. Tay Nakua was really good in spring ball, so you've seen flashes. It just hasn't carried over yet to the game. Iki Tupo on the offensive line could primarily play guard. He's a Bay Area guy, was from the Palo Alto area. Still kind of holding on him, but I think he could be someone that's a factor down the road. Trevor Pay, center. I would expect he'd probably be the backup center to Bruce Mitchell once again next season. Strance Mangisi, a former Provo High preferred walk-on, served a mission, joined the program this year. I think he's more developmental. We'll see down the road on him. Jovesa Damuni, kind of a tough situation, running back. He had that fumble against West Virginia and really didn't see much of him after that. I think it was one other game. What was it? Maybe the Cincinnati game? I'd have to go back and look. I know he's been playing some special teams and things like that, but as far as running back carries go, we didn't see him much after that West Virginia game, and that's of note because there was no one after LJ at running back when Sione Moa was down. There was no one. And they said all the right things, that they believed in Jovesa, but they weren't showing it with how they utilized him in snaps. So that's a little bit concerning going forward in regards to Jovesa Damuni. But that's kind of the freshman inventory for BYU football. We'll do the defensive side tomorrow here on the program as we look over kind of the freshman personnel, the guys that are maybe ones to watch in the future, guys that are going to be to be determined on their status maybe after the season, could be potential portal candidates. We'll look at the defensive side tomorrow here on the program. Final break. On the other side, the best buzzer beaters in BYU basketball history. We'll go over that next here on Cougar Tracks. Welcome back into Cougar Tracks here on KSL News Radio, your legacy home of the Cougars. What a win last night for BYU basketball, taking down Clemson 67-64, and it was a buzzer beater. Rob Wright gets it done, hits his first game winner since he was a freshman in high school at the Horn, and it got me thinking, the best buzzer beaters in BYU basketball history. Buzzer beaters are hard to come by, man. They are hard. I would say this one is one of the all-time best because the venue, how good this BYU team is, a top 10 team, how quality of an opponent Clemson is. Clemson's a solid team. This is an all-timer. That's a great moment for BYU basketball history. But there have been other buzzer beaters in BYU basketball history. Go back to 2019, TJ Haas. He hit a buzzer beater against Houston in the Fertitta Center, a place that Houston never loses. And still, that win probably adds more aura, considering over the last 6 years, Houston barely loses in that building. And TJ Haas, in the first year under Mark Pope, hits that buzzer beater. He embraced Mark Durant, was hugging Durant courtside. That was a great win for BYU hoops. And it was kind of a breakthrough moment for the Mark Pope era, because remember the year prior, BYU played Houston in hoops, and it was the same day as the BYU football game against Utah. Zach Wilson and that true freshman season against the Utes. Houston pretty much hammered BYU. And then the next year, Cougs get it done over the Cougs in Clutch City in the Fertitta Center. That was a memorable one. Let's go back to 1999. I remember this one as a young kid. McKelly Wesley banked in a 25-footer. He completed a 17-point comeback win over Hawaii in Honolulu. And you're thinking, what's the significance of that? Look, back in the day, this was year 2 of the build with Steve Cleveland in BYU hoops. From 1-25 to then, any win was valuable. And that was the year 2. McKelly Wesley, gosh, I'm trying to think. I think it was his first, he missed the first half of the season, and then he came back the second half, and that was a huge win. Just any victory for that BYU team in that time was big, and he banked a 25-footer. I remember watching that one on tape delay. It was the next morning because it was I think 10 p.m. tip-off local time, and I remember watching it the next morning and just thinking, oh, yes, McKelly Wesley gets it done. That was a good one. How about 1992? Kevin Nixon had 2 memorable ones. Probably maybe the best ever. Kevin Nixon beats Oklahoma, number 9 Oklahoma, in the Maui Invitational with a buzzer beater. That one was great. But maybe this one. I mean, this will still play on championship week every March on ESPN, this highlight. 1992 WAC tournament. Kevin Nixon from 54 feet buries a game winner in the WAC championship to take down UTEP and clinch an automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. I mean, that's the stuff you dream of. That's the stuff that you drop as a kid. Nixon, the sharpshooter, man. Those are some great moments. How about this, too? 2004, Rafael Araujo. He had a layup. Luis Lemes inbounded the pass. I think it was the last game of the regular season at the Thomas and Mack. That season, 2004, Hoffa laid it up, 0.5 remaining. He comes down, and I think he hits elbows accidentally. Jarrell Blassingame took down the Rebs for a rare win in the Thomas and Mack. Well, I should say a rare win considering the Dave Rose era of BYU hoops. They rarely won in Vegas. The Steve Cleveland era won a lot in Vegas. Kind of weird how that worked out. 2011, Jimmer Fredette, he had a 40-footer at the half against Utah where Greg Wrubell went crazy. From 40 feet! Yeah, that was awesome. It wasn't the end of the game, but still to have that moment at halftime. That capped off one of the great halves in BYU basketball history by an individual player. And then what about 1981? Danny Ainge, not quite the buzzer, but Danny Ainge coast to coast, Sweet 16 against Notre Dame. Iconic play in NCAA tournament history and adds to the legendary status of Danny Ainge if he wasn't a legend already. That just put him at the top of BYU basketball history. But that's some great BYU basketball buzzer beaters, and Rob Wright joins the list. And that's going to do it for this edition of Cougar Tracks. I hope all of you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast and subscribe to the KSL Sports YouTube page and listen here on KSL News Radio.